Welcome everyone to another Marvel Crisis Protocol unboxing. So today we have Heimdall and Skurge. So these guys, I have to say now, Skurge basically looks like he's from He-Man with that chest plate. And Heimdall, what a wonderful base. I think that base is absolutely epic, and it's just a classic Heimdall pose as well, so just like in the movies. So obviously he is based more off the comics, but he's such an absolute beast, just standing there like a tank. Skurge, I was quite tempted to have like two M16s or something and convert this guy. He would look pretty epic, but a big axe, I bet he would love that as well. So there's, as per always, a little bit of a blurb on the back. So, Heimdall and Skurge, the All-Seeing and the Executioner. So you probably don't need to know which way around it is. You can probably guess yourselves. The guy with a massive axe is known as the Executioner. Shocker, right? And Heimdall, the All-Seeing, is an all-seeing Asgardian in charge of defending the Bifrost and the Rainbow Bridge. So very much like in the movies, he stands there, anybody trying to break in to Asgard from the Bifrost and the Rainbow Bridge, he's an absolute tank with a sword. He's Biff. He can see people coming across dimensions, because he can see through space pretty much. He can see anywhere he wants to, so he doesn't need direct line of sight. And his son has also got the same gift, as you'll see in the latest Thor film. No spoilers. But yes, chosen by Odin himself, he is an Asgard's first line of defense against any incursion. Able to see and hear across both time and space, he can predict all but the most cunning efforts to infiltrate the realm eternal. Yeah, so he sees stuff coming before it happens. So how does he ever get defeated? There you go. Just move out of the way. Don't be there. Yeah. But that's not how these plot armor works, I'm afraid. But yeah, this guy is pretty cool in the films. He's a boss in the comics. And he certainly looks more Asgardian with that helmet as well, that horny helmet. So, Skurge, the Executioner, is a legendary Asgardian warrior. He's known at once for feats of valor and foolishness, having over many years both defended and assailed Asgardian's gates. So, like in the film Ragnarok, he's never fully good or fully bad until he went completely bad and then realised the error of his ways. So once his mind is set to a task, Skurge's will is as steel as the head of his axe. So he does like a good fight, it is true. I know in Ragnarok he did try to save his own skin in front of everybody else's, but he's not a bad guy deep down, not really. So what do we get in this box? So we obviously have the two miniatures, the two bases, but as per always, I'm sure there will be more bases in this box. Two character stat cards, two team tactics cards. Unfortunately, these models do not come painted or even assembled. So let's have a look and see what's in the box. So we have the instructions, but very much like pretty much every modern set of instructions for Marvel Crisis Protocol, that's a wicked picture by the way, it is on a QR code which will take you to the appropriate website on how to assemble the miniatures. It said two bases, and you probably guessed it, but there's four bases because the sprue contains four bases. It's just cheaper to mass produce, I guess, and it gives you options. Excuse me. And don't forget the tiny little crush can and the drinks. And occasionally you might get a little bottle as well. Keep those because they'll be blimmin' handy, especially when I eventually get hold of Blob, because it'd be great for my Brotherhood of Mutants. I want to grab all the crushed drinks cans I can and stick them on his base and make an absolute heap. But these models aren't that hard to assemble, and you can probably guess without the instructions as well. But this guy is pretty chonky. I mean, compared to someone like Viper or maybe Black Widow, this guy is an absolute beatstick. So I was quite surprised he's on the smaller lot of the bases. The detail's not bad. You can see the markings on the sides of his head. This is more of a PVC plastic. It's pretty easy to work with, and it's got a fairly decent amount of detail. It's not incredible. Can't see like the veins in his neck or anything like that, but it's pretty good. Their plastics are coming a long way, but you can see the base on Heimdall's. It's almost like a crystalline structure from the Rainbow Bridge. The detail is pretty cool. So I'm going to enjoy. I don't know how I'm going to paint the rainbow effect. I might find some paint that changes colour when you rotate the model, because it could take a while to paint rainbows. But it's interesting, I've never tried before, so I'll give it a go. And there's the horny helmet with the stoic expression and a proper Norse looking beard as well. So keen-eyed people will probably notice that these are the new card formats. So they are laid out horizontal, and it's not much difference really. These guys never had the old cards anyway. They are a recent sculpt. So your layout is slightly different on this side. So you have your defenses first rather than your main stats, I would call it first. So his physical defense is 3, and so is his energy, and so is his mystic. He has 6 stamina, he costs 3, he's a size 2, and he moves medium. So all fairly standard. I was quite surprised considering how much of a beatstick he is in the cartoons, comics and films. He was a 3-pointer. So I'm not sure how hard he's going to hit, but let's go into it. So he has a strike like most models do. After his attack is resolved, this character gains power equal to the amount of damage dealt. Fairly standard, and not being surprisingly with a great big sword, it's physical. So it's physical, range 2, it's 5 dice, and it costs 0. It's a fairly straightforward so far. Horde Find is a range 2, it's also physical, 7 dice, and cost 3. So it's not bad, 7 dice out of 3 power. If this attack does damage, after the attack is resolved, this character may push the target character away medium. So a lot of models out there will push away small. Medium is pretty pokey. And notice, it doesn't say anything about size. So for example, if you hit the Hulk and push him away medium, with a base that big, that's quite a distance. It doesn't need a wild, it literally just needs to do damage. So this guy's pretty good as a last model in your activation to push somebody off an objective, I would say. That's not bad. 7 dice is pretty useful as well. So, first lot of his powers. Guardian of the Bifrost. Well, a bit weird if you didn't have this. It costs 3 power. Choose this character or another allied character within range 4 and place it within 2 of its current position. The character can be placed by this superpower only once per turn. So it is 3 to give you a range 2 positioning, which doesn't sound incredible, but when you think about it, once again, if Hulk's on your team, massive base, or let's say Juggernaut, put him within range 2, especially if somebody needs to move up the table, that's really nice. But also, don't just use it for offensive purposes, use it for defense. If someone has got an objective and you really need to get them out there and they're taking an absolute pasting, move that model too. Move them out of the way. Make them safer. Pretty nice ability. I'm not going to lie, that's pretty nice. Imagine him stacking up with Lockjaw. Yeah, you can have some serious tricks there. Okay, we have All-Seeing Eyes. Costs 2 power. When an allied character within range 3 is attacking, defending, or dodging, during the modified dice step, this character may use this superpower. The allied character may reroll up to 2 of its own dice. Alternatively, when an allied character within range 3 rolls dice for a crisis card or team tactics card, this character may use this superpower, and the allied character may reroll 2 of its own dice. That's pretty nice. I can imagine this guy would be pretty useful on Guardians, for example, where re-rolling dice is pretty nice anyway. So let's say you've got someone doing a really big attack, like Juggernaut in Asgardians with this guy. So let's say he's got 10 dice. Asgardians make him re-roll 2 dice. He can make them re-roll 2 dice. That's pretty tasty, especially if you're playing the hammers scenario as well. Giving him, let's say he's got 2 hammers on there, 12 dice, re-rolling 4 dice. That's a pretty nice situation to be in. That's pretty accurate. So he doesn't add dice. He basically just allows you to re-roll dice, which is always nice. Fiend, so is a 2 power. When an enemy character ends its movement within 2 of this character may use this superpower. Immediately make a strike attack against the enemy character. This superpower can only be used once per turn. So his strike, remember, is only 5 dice and it's physical. So maybe you might not want to use it against someone like, I don't know, Carnage or Venom. But if someone's only got 1 wound left and they move towards you, if you didn't inform them, or you did inform them and they've forgotten, yeah, I would take that chance. And remember, yes, it costs 2, but with Strike, you can gain the power as well. So you could always get that power back. Yes, you can only use it once per turn. You might even generate more power than 2. So that's pretty good. And next we have his passive. Asgardian, during the power phase, this character gains 1 additional power. So with the additional power, you could even use the counter strike power straight off the bat, because that obviously costs 2 power. That's pretty nice. If someone's likely in your first turn to be in your face, it's probably going to be Logan. But yeah, you could do that. You could always use the All-Seeing Eye straight off the bat as well. And don't forget, because he's a medium move, you could move up the board and use one of those powers to grab an objective. I don't think, unless you've got some serious tricks out there, and you could probably grab 2 objectives. But if he's got the power to do it, then he can do it. So when he is injured, he basically is exactly the same, minus 1 stamina. So he loses 1 health when he's injured. But yeah, he's a pretty good character, I would say. He's a nice little buffing character, regards placement, which is always nice anyway. So I like playing X-Men with Storm, and that X-Men hop's pretty nice, and then he can do Guardian of the Bifrost, so you can place another character, which is pretty cool. So you could do like a double hop, especially if you've got like Red Skull. Red Skull likes moving right up the table. He counts blank successes as well, so you could use his All-Seeing Eyes on Red Skull. That could be pretty nasty. That's a pretty nice combo. But he is a 3. His defenses aren't maybe fantastic, but he's got some tricks. I do like the fact that you can push any size model with his Spender attack, and you can push it away medium. That is pretty useful. So I wouldn't say he's a one-trick pony. Yes, he's only got physical attacks. Yes, his defenses are fairly standard, but he's got some little tools in his toolbox, definitely. Okay, Skurge. So, slightly tougher, physically anyway. 4 physical defense, 3 energy, 2 mystic. Not known for his brains. 6 stamina, also a cost 3, also a size 2, and a movement of medium. So exactly the same regards the base stats, not the defenses. So he's obviously slightly more of a beat stick. So his battle axe is physical. I will zoom in slightly so we can read it. Whoop, I said zoom in. Right, so his battle axe. After the attack is resolved, this character gains 1 power. So 1 power only, so it's not a big builder. It is range 2 and 6 dice, so slightly stronger than Heimdall. He has a bleed on a wild. For those who don't know, at the end of a model's activation, a model suffering from bleed this is, they automatically take 1 point of damage. Which is pretty nice. Yeah, it's a nice little bonus. That's not too bad. It's not a massive game changer. Then we have another attack called the Executioner. So this is a physical attack once again, range 3, 8 dice, which is always nice, but cost 4 power. If the target has the bleed special condition, which it may do, you may reroll up to 2 attack dice during this attack. And it has a bleed on a wild. So if you hit somebody with a battle axe and they were bleeding previously, you get to reroll 2 attack dice. That's pretty nice. So once again, this guy on Guardians would be pretty good because you could reroll 2 attack dice anyway. If you've got like Gamora, or if you've got Drax throwing bleed out there, things like that, that'd be pretty nice. He'd be fairly tasty in the team, so he can reroll 4 attack dice potentially. 4 attack dice when you're rolling 8 dice, so half of your dice could be rerolled, unless they're obviously skulls, is pretty potent. It's pretty nice. Storm Giant's Strength is the first of his powers, so it cost him 3 power to perform it. Choose an interactive terrain feature of size 3 or less within range 2 and throw it small. This power can only be used once per turn. So yeah, alright, so you are throwing things bigger than average. It's specifically a terrain feature, so you can throw those cars, brilliant. You could throw the Bugle newsstand, you can throw the taco truck, things like that. So you can throw it slightly heavier things than normal, because he's obviously quite a beast. And within range 2, but you can still only throw it small. Okay, it's a shame that it's only terrain, but hey ho, that's not bad for a size, a 3-pointer even. Right Hand Man. So, for 2 power, when an enemy character within range 2 of this character targets another allied character with an attack, this character may use this superpower. This character becomes the target of the attack regardless of range and line of sight. So basically it's a bodyguard. I mean, if it's a physical, that's not bad because he's got 4 physical defense dice. That's okay. It's just okay. Especially if someone is holding an objective and they've got 1 health left and he takes the attack instead. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So he has 2 passive abilities. The first one is Aggressive. After an attack, targeting this character is resolved. If this character suffered any damage, it may advance small towards the attacking character. So, if he takes the damage from Right Hand Man, and he moves up because of Aggressive, it may help him out in his actual own activation. He could then be in range to beat somebody up. So those 2 could stack fairly nicely, I guess. And you guessed it, he's an Asgardian, so during the power phase, this character gains 1 additional power. So he could do Right Hand Man fairly early on. Doesn't like a lot has changed on the back, so he goes from 6 health to 5 health. All of his attacks look the same. So he is a bodyguard. He hits fairly hard, but it is physical. And he could throw terrain small distances. He's okay. He's okay. Nothing really stands out at the moment going, I must play this guy. Great against like bleed special conditions, I guess. So maybe if he teamed up with Blade, would be pretty nice. Midnight Suns possibly. So that'd be a nice little combo. And next we'll get into the team tactics cards. So we'll start off with this little beauty. Weapons of Midgard. So it's a physical attack. It is a beam of 4, which is always nice. It is 5 dice and it costs 0, apparently, until we read further down. Unaffiliated and active. During Skurge's turn, so Skurge the Executioner, its activation, he may spend 2 to play this card, so it does cost 2 power to play this card. Skurge the Executioner may use the attack listed above once this activation. So for 2, and we all know that he can get 2 at the beginning of every turn, because he gets an additional 1 for being Asgardian, he can have a beam of 4. So it's quite nice that it's a physical beam, because there's a lot of energy beams out there and a few mystic beams out there. But you know, those physical beams are helpful as well. It is only 5 dice, so it's not the end of the world, I suppose. But it's a beam, and a beam nonetheless. So for 2 power, beam of 4, 5 dice. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Meet My Executioner. It's unaffiliated, and it's a reactive card. When another allied character would suffer collision, Enchantress may spend 2 power to play this card. Place an allied Skurge the Executioner within 1 of this character suffering a collision. So Skurge the Executioner suffers the collision instead. During this collision, if Skurge the Executioner would suffer damage, reduce the amount he suffers by 1. So you've got to have Enchantress to do it. You've got to have Skurge on your team. So when another allied character would suffer collision, Enchantress may spend 2 to play this card. So she doesn't have to suffer the damage, but she does have to pay the points cost. Place an allied Skurge within 1 of the character that is suffering the collision. Skurge takes the collision instead, and he reduces the amount of damage by 1. So there's another way of getting Skurged up the table, and then you could do like the right-hand man thing later on, I suppose, if you really need to get him up there to take some hits instead. It's just movement tech, really, with Skurge, which could be useful. Bodyguard, I really should look into getting a model bodyguard on my team, because it can be pretty nice. Yeah, right, he takes the damage. But if someone's holding an objective, for example, and they really need to score, and he takes it instead, brilliant. So it seems like a lot of the time, he shouldn't be holding objectives, because he's going to take the hit instead of somebody else in your team that's doing it. So it's okay. Once again, not groundbreaking, not amazing. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's always nice to reduce damage coming in. Sadly, he can only do it via the card and via a collision. But hey-ho, it's another way to get him up the table. I suppose with Heimdall on the team as well, he can get him up the table faster. Playing this card, if you have Enchantress as well, could get up the table faster. And aggressive would help as well. So right-hand man and aggressive can go pretty hand in hand, which is pretty nice. So remember, this is, aggressive is may advance towards the attacking character, so terrain and things like that does not count. So collision wouldn't make a difference. But yeah, there are ways to get him up the table. It's okay. He could hit fairly hard, I guess, with 8 dice on his spender. And if someone is suffering from bleed, it's a nice little combo. It's very much like Drax there. Okay, so not a bad kit. Obviously, if you have him with Asgardians, like Thor can help them remove conditions, things like that. But I'm looking at Heimdall, maybe in X-Men, possibly. And Skurge the same, because you really want that movement tech to get him up there to take the damage, so then he can smack back. It should be fairly easy for him to get the Executioner off. I mean, you can wait 2 turns, or if you take any damage with aggressive in the first turn and move him up, then chances are he's going to have enough power to smack back. That's pretty nice. I don't know that would really keep them with Thor, but having all the Asgardians is pretty nice. So the only Asgardian I really need now is Enchantress. So once again, I think my collection's done, and there's another model out there. And she is a pretty good model, to be fair. She has got some pretty nice tricks. But that's a video for another day. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. You can understand what I'm talking about, because sometimes I get really hyper and I do talk a little bit too fast. But yeah, stay safe, you wonderful people. Please hit the like button if you haven't done already. And please, please, please subscribe for some more great hobby content.